Welcome to Impactful. In this episode, we are talking about AI, search engine optimization, and journalism. Our guest is Ryan Restivo. He developed the YESEO app, designed to assist newsrooms with search engine optimization best practices. Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
At this moment, more than 300 newsrooms around the world are using your YESEO app. What motivated you to start this project? How did it all begin?
The SEO app is a fun adventure that I never realized that I was going to have a chance to do. I learned about the RJI Fellowship Program, the Reynolds Journalism Institute out at the University of Missouri, and their fellowship program back in early 2022. And one of the first things I heard was about just focusing on finding a great idea. And that's what I tried to focus on to start, find a great idea. I was very fortunate and lucky that an editor came to me and kind of inspired the idea that I had. And it was, why did this story not rank on the first page of Google? And we made a spreadsheet of the first page and we made all this other stuff. And we learned very quickly that this home healthcare aide that was being harmed didn't fit on the first page in our story, but it was on everybody else's. And I live in a competitive market, New York City area. So it was easy to see why ours didn't rank. The keywords weren't there. So that was the like spark that lit the fire, right? And that idea turned into, well, I've built things in Slack before for newsrooms. So what the challenge to kind of approach an RJI fellowship was to say, well, we could build it for more than one, right? And RJI's mission is to support small local newsrooms. So the idea to build this kind of came naturally from there. It was like, could we just do this, but scale it? And I love making Google Sheets, but I can't make thousands of them. How can we make sure that it works for people that I may never even meet? And that's where like the idea just kind of went. And then from there, I've been very fortunate that RJI supported me and my project all the way up until launching it in March. And then since March, right, it's just been an adventure.
We said that the SEO has hundreds of users. Did you expect this level of interest and response?
No, like it's easy for me to say no. It's funny. The reason I want to do this, I wanted to help more than just one newsroom. And my project and RJI's mission really aligned in that sense, right? To help a lot of newsrooms out there and have something that can help more than one newsroom. And around this time last year, I was building the thing so it could be installed in other workspaces, which was a pain, I'll say myself. But once I got over that, it was a great, hurdle to get to and make sure that people can install it. I now know people who've used it all over the globe, and like that to me is just really special that I've had an effect on people, or people have used this thing and have used it to improve their work. And that was always the goal here, extending out and reaching out to folks that I may never otherwise meet and helping them do their jobs just slightly better. And I'm really fortunate to be in that position.
You went through the whole journey, from an idea to a finished product. Could you share with us the process of developing? Did everything go smoothly?
No, nothing ever goes smooth, right? I launched this thing in early March. The thing that launched in March to the thing that is out there now that people use is vastly different. And that's a fun thing, right? That it's very different than what it was. And I think it was that same week I was trying to make a big backend change, and then RJI launched it. And I'm still halfway through that backend change at that time. So I was rushing to then make sure I did everything I needed to do to make sure it was going to work just fine. It was going to, not break as much. And it's been gradual from there. Everything has had to change and improve. The influx of users has helped me figure out how to kind of better serve them, right? Like I got good advice very early on before even launching through the News Product Alliance's mentorship program. And, I had a mentor in the program, and he talked about, you're going to see how people use your thing once people get in there. That's the only way you're going to see it. and I had metrics to track, and it was great to see like how people didn't understand how certain things work. The things I thought were easy, things that I've tested and other people have tested in newsrooms, they were able to figure out. But when you release it to a wider audience, you're going to have those kind of differences where people don't understand a certain thing or how to do something. So you need to make sure you're walking them through at certain points and making sure they actually activate and figure out how to engage with the value proposition that I'm trying to pitch with the SEO for their newsroom. So it was very interesting to see how these newsrooms kind of used it differently. And then as it has evolved over time, people have changed how they use it, or how they use it is different, right? There are two different ways to get your stories, either before publishing or after published, like use a URL. So it's been interesting to see how people change over time from one to the other. And it's been super interesting to just to learn their stories. One of the things that is great about being a free app is it's as easy as going to YESEO.app and hitting add to Slack. I can plug that, but I need to learn more about you, right? So I've worked pretty hard to learn the stories of the newsrooms that have been affected and have used the SEO and found benefits from it. So I've been able to catalog those in case studies, right? But it's interesting to figure out and then learn. And you don't need an email to sign up. You don't need to give your credit card. You don't have to do anything, right? It's just click the button.
Since YESEO's release, there have been several updates based on user feedback.
Yeah. So one of the things that the original idea, like I said, was inspired by links, right? Existing links. So I started showing this to folks a few months into my RTI fellowship through this 8-month process to do this project. And the feedback I got was, this is great, but what about a story I haven't published yet? And so around December last year, December 2022, I started saying, okay, well, maybe I'll just build that one too, thinking it would be so easy. It was not. I basically needed to create an entire new process just for that. But it paid off in the end, because when I talk about metrics, usage started to be more of the links to start. And then it kind of changed over time, that I think around over 2/3 of stories that go into SEO right now are from this other way called prep, right? A story where you could just input text and in a similar way, right, get that similar analysis. And the way that you could do that is using a text box or just copying and pasting text, making it as easy as copy and paste for people, so that we're lowering the barrier to entry. We're agnostic to any CMS, so you don't need to have any kind of special CMS. As long as you know your clipboard, you're able to do this. So it's been interesting to see that people have went from published links, in some cases, to kind of copying and pasting their text and kind of using it to build that kind of analysis.
The SEO is easy to install and use. Why did you choose Slack for it?
I use Slack because it was the first thing I ever learned to build apps on. It was the first thing I learned to use to code. Um, um, I It was a long weekend I had free, so I decided many, many years ago now, to kind of pick up a language, right? I just tried to pick it up and try to learn it, and it was in service of building a Slack app for a newsroom. And then I built that. I kind of put a ton of crazy features on top of it, because I just said, I'll just try to build anything. And then this newsroom found a real practical use for breaking news. Somebody came over to me on my desk one day and said, well, it'd be really great if we could just preview our breaking news email newsletter. And so I built it in like 2 minutes. And all of a sudden they found it so valuable that I think it was one of my first vacations that I had to leave my laptop plugged in, and make sure that it was still running, humming all the summer week when I was on vacation, to make sure that they were still able to get it, right? Obviously, after we put it on a server, don't worry, doesn't run like that anymore, for many years now. And actually, through the process of being an RJFL, actually changed it a little bit, where through YESEO you can use buttons. Now that app has buttons too. Um, but so like Slack was always something that I connected with to build on top of. So my proposal to RJI was to build an app for Slack that helps in this case. And so I kind of narrowed it in that sense. But I know that since 2020, we've all moved into kind of being very digital focused, Slack's become a tool where journalists have to use this to engage their, not just their audience, but their entire team. They have to work with their entire team in Slack and work in this kind of way. So building on top of that in a way that would give newsrooms opportunities to get better, I thought was the best kind of avenue to push this forward.
So everyone can use it for free and easily. They just need to add it to their Slack workspace.
You can get it by going to YESEO.app, clicking on the Add to Slack button. It'll easily install into your workspace. If you install for the first time, it should welcome you and give you some tutorials. That was one of the things that I learned after people first used it, was make sure we're pointing them in the right direction. How do they use it? How do we make this simple for folks? YESEO is in the Slack app directory, so it's as easy as searching in the Slack app directory. You can search yes, and you're basically to YESEO, because I think it's the first term that uses yes. And that's where you would find like Dropbox and Outlook and all these other kinds of apps that Slack offers. And that was that released in July. So it's been there since July. That was a fun thing to get in there. And one of the things that I learned going into Slack app directory is that YESEO uses commands, so slash commands. So those people who are not familiar, in Slack, you have little text boxes. If you hit slash remind, you can write a reminder for yourself in the future. But one thing I didn't know was that a best practice in apps for Slack is that if you use a command, you're supposed to be able to type help and get a tutorial. So if you use the command for YESEO, like slash analyze, you would want to put a URL in there. But if you didn't know what to do, you can do slash analyze, type the words help, and you'll get a tutorial on that. Same for slash prep, which is where you would kind of copy and paste text from a published story. You would slash prep help, and you'll be able to get a little quick tutorial on how it all works. And that's been something that that I continue to learn and build on. And those are kind of the two main entry points for newsrooms to kind of get into using SEO. And then once you input your story, you'll be asked for some other information, like putting place at the center. Where is your story located, right? If you're a newsroom in Ohio or a newsroom in Oklahoma, or if you're a newsroom in Western Canada, you'll enter what kind of market you want to focus those keywords on. And then you'll also be asked about the kind of time span. So if this is like a big breaking news story, we could kind of search some Google Trend data. And then once you do those two selections, it takes about 2 minutes. It's doing a lot of work in the background. And while it does all that work in the background, it gives a fun message. It says sometimes you can go, make a cup of coffee for yourself. By the time you're back, it'll be ready. And by the time it's ready, a little button will say that your report is ready. When you click that button, you're getting a lot of reporting that's just been made in that 2 minutes. All of the data that you will then see has already been made in that 2-minute span. You click the button, you're getting all of that reporting there. So you don't have to wait. Once you click a button, you're seeing all of that information. You can see how tightly or loosely related the keywords are to your story. We're pulling out those main keywords in your story and trying to think about, hey, is the story actually what we want to tell people in our headline? Like, are we telling people in our headline the same thing that's in our story? Similarly to our descriptions. And then one other thing we do, so you can then explore those keywords off on Google Trends, because they've been compiled too, and there's a button there. And then another thing we'll show off is a suggest headlines button. So I started this project in July of 2022, and around 3/4 of the way through that, there was a large, I don't know what's the best way to put it, surge in AI usage, and these GPT things started coming out there, right? So I had to think about a practical way to help newsrooms with this. And I'm very lucky and fortunate that I was able to talk with somebody who is much smarter than me. And he was telling me how he was using GPT to teach him new languages of code. And he was using it to learn Ruby and Apple TypeScript and all these other things. And I was using it very simply. So that really took me back to the drawing board and thought, well, what are there ways where I could use this in the application? And so with the suggest headlines button, what it's doing is it's feeding some of the data that's already been input, and then it's running an experiment most of the time about how to generate some keywords or descriptions or other information that can help you towards getting you to a headline that you might want and giving options, right? So 5 or 6 headline ideas. And a lot of the things that I'm headlining in here are that they are ideas. These are starting points where you can take one or take two and kind of mash them together and think about it and put in your style. And one of the benefits that comes with Slack is that you can't just copy and paste. There's no way to put it into a CMS. So right away. So you have to decide what works for you, and you have to be able to take it and put it into your CMS and figure it out. And to me, that's important when we're using these kinds of products because we always want to have a human in the equation. We want somebody to decide. And for me, I think that a lot of when you're talking with newsrooms, it's hard for newsrooms to embrace technology. But one way to make sure that they're going to embrace this technology and use it for the better is that they will still have some control, right? They want to make sure that there's some control here. And so everything and the language that I try to put in to SEO is really padded around ideas and making sure people are just making those decisions and figuring it out.
Could you share with us some of the most interesting feedback from users?
So there are a lot of interesting stories when it comes to YESEO, and one of the most interesting to me is one of the first ones. So I was selected to speak at the Illinois News Broadcasters Association event in the spring of 2023. It's one of the first speaking gigs I did after the RJI fellowship was kind of intimidating. So giving a virtual presentation, and they're all in Springfield, Illinois. And once I'm done presenting, somebody from the audience starts to ask a question, right? Open up to questions. So her name's Jenna, and what she does is she gets on the microphone and says, "Oh, we've used SEO, and one of our stories was one of the highest engaged in over a year that we put into SEO." And I could probably understand my feeling that I wanted to leap through the camera right here to reach out and talk to her and kind of, since I've mentioned before, right, I don't have a lot of information on people who use it. So you can imagine that I want to just leap through there and want to just talk and just chat with her, like put my arm on her shoulder, like just, hey, what happened? Like, tell me everything right now. But it was super valuable to hear that. And like I've said before, I think that having that impact on folks that I might not even know. There are people out there who have those stories, who've been helped by something I've built, is super valuable to me, even if I don't know all of them. Somebody was telling me a few weeks ago, like, "Oh, we heard somebody mention SEO at a conference." Well, my ears don't ring when that happens. Um, but I was able to document Jenna's story at WNIJ at Northern Illinois University as part of the case studies page that I have at yeseo.app, which you'll see on the top navigation, um, and really get into their story and how they've used it. And they're awesome, right?
What we can expect in the future when we talk about SEO?
So I'm really excited about the future of SEO. We mentioned 300 workspaces have installed it. Almost 10,000 stories have been put in it over the course of the first, I guess, 9+ months, which is kind of unbelievable to me. I actually did a double take when I was redoing those numbers. Um, and I'm pumped that on January 31st, through RJI, I'm going to have a free webinar presenting the SEO app. I'm going to be teaching it, right? A lot of the last 9 months I've had to spend telling everybody what SEO is. Here it is. What it is. I'll dance on whatever to show you how it works. But now I really want to take this step as as we're in 2024 to show people, kind of educate people, show them all the different things, show them how people have already seen value from it, and kind of see how it will multiply from there. And for that, it involves teaching, getting out there. This will be a webinar, so you'll be able to watch me and also participate, right? That's the plan. So in this webinar, January 31st at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Central Time, since RJ is in Central. So we will kind of present everything about SEO, show you how to install it, show you how it works, do a demo. But most of all, and I think most importantly for me, is get people to use it together in a space where they don't feel like they can use it, they can ask questions, and they can kind of go about it. Right. One of the most important things for me is, especially in terms of teaching the tool, is giving people something they can come back with, they can go on and lead out from there. That's one of the most important things we've been going over and trying to work on as we're building this is how do we kind of set people up to move forward and kind of get value out of it? For me, it's get learning and learning who wants to use it. It's figuring out who they are. It's helping the people, being in contact with people to help them directly and show them this thing. But also it's about making sure that people are building relationships with each other and showing each other how to use it and make sure we answer questions so they can be an advocate for their newsroom and be able to answer any questions because I can't be everywhere. And as many times as people talk about SEO, I can't answer all the questions. So people are left out there to answer them themselves. So hopefully I'm giving them the best answers I can. And you can easily register by going to SEO.app. There's a link on the homepage that points out to the webinar. So you'll be able to click register and be a part of it.
In 2023, AI and its ethical use has been discussed more than ever. What we can expect in 2024 regarding AI and journalism.
We've been using AI over the course of 2023 as this buzzword that is like ubiquitous with GPT and just all of GPT and what GPT has done to us and those kinds of things. But a lot of the foundation for AI, like the more broader word AI in newsrooms, has been around for a while. Machine learning, natural language processing, like the pulling keywords for SEO is using natural language processing. All of us know that in our nerdy technical space, but people don't think of that as AI anymore. They just think of using GPT. Data analysis, right? We've been using data analysis and kind of methods in journalism for many years now, right? Computers started writing stories in 2012. The AP wrote automated business stories in 2014. Newsrooms have been automating their homepages. The Guardian extracted quotes from stories before GPT showed up and they were using natural language processing. So for me, I think it's just about for moving forward here that newsrooms are going to have to separate themselves by learning how to embrace how technology can help them do their jobs better and not treat it as their enemy. It is not easy to get a newsroom to think about how technology could, technology, somebody told me many months ago, technology plus newsrooms equals fear for a lot of people. So, we have to make sure that we're bringing people along and that we're having them embrace tools that, not only give them a leg up, like hopefully SEO does, but giving them something that gives them that control, right? Keeping a human in the equation that decides what's going to be put out there. For as many my belief is that for as many tools or have many AIs and LLMs that pop up over the next year or beyond, we still, our brains are the fastest supercomputer that we know of. And so the way that we're going to help these kinds of tools moving forward using this kind of technology is people still have to think before they do. So they're always going to have to think before they do. So I think that for me, it's just about making sure that we're embracing these as tools, that people are always in the middle, and that people are always deciding what the outcome should be.
Thank you, Ryan, for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this talk and learned something new. See you in the next episode of Impactful.